Ja, superleuk dat we dit gaan doen. Deze expert call over residentie samen met twee experts, Melanie en Alex, Melanie Redford, Alex Redford from My Lawyer in Spain. And before we're going to start, and before I'm going to ask you guys to introduce yourself to this audience and to the people who are watching after, I just want to briefly introduce me for the people who have heard my name somewhere in the Facebook group, but don't know exactly who I am and what I do. So this call is English. Normally, well, we do it in Dutch as well, of course, when there are only Dutch speakers, but this time it's in English. So, well, I moved to Spain about 3 years ago, and I love it. I love it. I lived in Amsterdam, and I was, well, ready for something new, for a new adventure. I moved to Spain with my husband and my dogs, and we built like a very nice boutique retreat here, where I do retreats for personal development, workations. My husband is a chef. He does culinary retreats. So we do different relaxed retreats. We do different kind of things here, and people can just come and stay for a holiday as well. So we're living the life of our dreams. But when we immigrated, it was new. And you think like Spain, I mean, it's close to Holland, close to Belgium, because there are Belgian watchers as well, visitors as well. And but it's pretty different in some perspectives, and it doesn't have to be difficult, but I think like when I look back, it would have been nice to know some of the differences of how to, like, for example, the Residentia, but also other things like NIE numbers, how to buy a house. Things are very different, and I think it's good to know these differences before you start actually immigrating. And that's why I started this Facebook group about, well, 2 years ago, and now we're almost 30,000 people, Dutch-speaking people from Holland, from Belgium, from somewhere else, but Dutch-speaking, who want to immigrate to Spain. And I wanted to facilitate a little bit more the information, because the Facebook group, you can ask all your questions, and people like experts, but also like people who immigrated before can help you out with your questions on from their own experience. But I wanted to provide a little bit more expert information, and that's why I asked Alex to join us today for this expert call about Residentie. So Alex and Melanie, if you're okay with it, can you maybe introduce yourself a little and tell us a little bit about, well, your path and what you're doing here in Spain with your organization?
Sure. Well, thank you, Nicolene, for inviting us along, and yeah, it's really glad to hear that you're living your dream. Okay. Yeah. So in effect, what happened, Nicolene, is my parents were in the same position as you were 30 odd years ago, and they said, let's move to Spain. So they moved to Spain in 1981, and I was younger then, obviously a lot younger. So I grew up in Spain. I went to Spanish school here, was kind of fluent quite quickly. And I did high school in Spain, and I moved back to England in 92 to go to university. So I did university in the UK, started practicing as a lawyer in 99 in England, and then I came back in 2003. So we moved back to Spain, and basically I moved back as a lawyer, working for a Spanish law firm. And so I'm an English lawyer and also a Spanish lawyer, and we act for basically international clients buying, selling, and inheriting property in Spain, and also moving to Spain. And Melanie will talk to you about, she now heads up the Residentie team. So I'll hand you over to her.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Hi. As Alex said, I head up the Residentie team. Moved to Spain myself in 2003. So we have a dedicated Residentie team, which we deal with day in, day out. We operate throughout Spain, so no area excluded, and no nationality excluded.
That's very important that you say that, Melanie, because I got some questions about it. Is this for English people, or is it also for Dutch people? I think
no, we have a whole whole mix of nationalities that we deal with, and even before, let's say, the UK, you know, departed from the EU, we were dealing with other types of nationalities as well on the sort of visa front. So we've never just sort of honed in on the British market there. So we deal with that. We have a strong, dedicated residency team. So we're on the ground floor, knowing about those inconsistencies that you would have come across against Spain, and I'm sure they're out there on social media, how one did this, one did that. And unfortunately, that is Spain, the inconsistency. Spain, some of the processes of applying for residency, documentation requirements and so forth do differ. But the good news is we know those inconsistencies, so we can plan for those.
And maybe it's also nice, Melanie, to explain a little that Spain is different when you compare to Holland or Belgium, as that we have comunidades, like it's not the province, but it's like above. So just touch for a little second. So in Nederland hebben we de provincie en de overheid, maar in Spanje heb je tussen de provincie en de overheid heb je een comunidad. And for example, here we're in the comunidad, I am in the comunidad Valencia, but there might be different rules or different things compared to Catalonia or Andalusia or wherever. So I'm not sure if it applies to residency or applying for residency, but I think for everyone, it's important to realize that legislation really can differ between different comunidades.
Yeah, I mean, the legislation between those comunidades should be the same. But it's down to, you know, the individual Foreigners Office police stations that are interpreting that legislation and applying their, you know, some of their own requirements there to the residency legislation. So and we can talk about some of those inconsistencies, because I'm sure they will come out in some of those questions.
And Nicoline, you're right. So basically, Spain, you know, Spain's obviously a large country. We've got 17 autonomous regions. So you've got a region, for example, Andalusia then has 8 provinces in the community. And in your Valencian region, you've got, you know, you've got Alicante, you've got Valencia there as well. And I know you're based in 𝑗avia. We've got an office in 𝑗avia. We've also got an office down south in southern Alicante in Ciudad Quesada, and then we have offices in the Costa del Sol in Andalusia. But we act for clients buying, selling, and inheriting property and moving to Spain all over. So generally the laws are the same. Tax laws can vary slightly. So if you buy a property in Andalusia, for example, a second-hand property, you'll pay transfer tax at 7% here, but in the Comunidad Valenciana, the Valencian community, you'll pay transfer tax at 10%. So yeah, the taxes vary, but the laws are generally the same. But this is Spain, and you know, one of the reasons we come to Spain is the great lifestyle, the culture, Spanish people who are very warm and welcoming. But as we've talked about, you know, the most consistent thing about Spain is the inconsistency from region to region, from town hall to town hall, you know. And you've just got to deal with that with a smile. And you know, bureaucracy can be very frustrating, but you just can't get too angry about it or annoyed. You've just got to go with the flow, you know?
Yeah, I completely agree. And it's one of the reasons why some people come to Spain as well. But this is kind of, well, the disadvantage of that vibe, that culture as well.
But it's not too bad to put you off. That's the key.
No way, no way, no way. I would do it again within a sec. I don't even have to think about it. So you're absolutely right. So let's talk about residency. What is it? Why do you need to be here? And why or when do you need it?
Okay, well, let's talk about sort of what does the legislation say about this. It says that if you are an EU citizen, so if you're Dutch nationality, then really and intend to reside in Spain, then you should, upon entering and moving to Spain, you should register for Spanish EU citizen residency within a 3-month period. of course, that's not always possible, you know, whether that's from, you know, availability of appointments or, and that's normally fine, but that's what the legislation says. Often it goes over that because, of course, when you enter Spain, you know, you've got that free movement, freedom of movement, and your passports aren't stamped. So it's very difficult to identify when you did actually come into Spain. But the official rule is that you should try within entering into Spain. You should try, and if you're intending to reside long term in Spain, you should try and do that within the 3-month period.
Right.
But
right,
you know,
so
don't worry if you don't.
Really moving to Spain. So when you move house, when you verhuisd, so when you're really gonna stay the rest of your life for as long as you know, you're gonna have to do it within the 3 months.
Yeah.
Kind of. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And Nicoline, it's quite important actually, because you know, you know, Europeans, Belgians have got freedom of movement, and as Melanie said, you know, and I know lots of you guys drive down from your countries, so it's very difficult for the authorities to manage that. So if you wanted to kind of keep on coming backwards and forwards between Holland and Belgium and Spain, you could probably get away with that, right? But what if you're intending to live here for more than 3 months a year, that's when you've got to apply for residency. Okay. And that's
sorry, Alex, just to understand it right. So you say when you want to live here for more than 3 months a year?
Yeah.
Or within the 3 months?
Well, basically, if you're going to live here for more than 3 months, then you've got to apply for residency within the 3 months. But as Melanie said, it's very difficult sometimes to deal with those tables. But if you said to me, I'm going to move to Spain next week, then we will then apply for your residency within the 3 months. Okay. But one of the things I wanted to touch on, which is really important, it's come up in the questions that have been asked, is we're talking about residency. Now, when you spend more than 183 nights in Spain between January and December, because the tax year runs from January to December, that's when you become a tax resident here. Okay. And the Spanish authorities, you'll pay tax in Spain on worldwide assets and income. Okay. So basically you can become a resident in Spain and spend less than 183 days. So you're not a tax resident. But as soon as you become a tax resident, then you spend more than 183 days, you've got to submit a tax return. And basically, so if someone moves to Spain now, Nicoline, because there's not 183 days left in the year, they wouldn't become a tax resident. But they would become a tax resident in 2025, and they would have to submit their tax return between April and June of 2026. Okay. So you come to Spain, you spend 183 days here, and then you submit your tax return on worldwide assets the year afterwards. Okay.
Okay.
So I just want so you know, you've got residency and you've got tax residency. If you're here for less than 183 days, you're not a Spanish tax resident, but you can be a resident.
Right. And the law is when you are here more than 3 months, you have to apply for residency. And what does that mean?
That basically means that you would have, for example, you would have a fixed address in Spain. Okay, because you would first of all you would register at the town hall to go on what they call the padrón, so that it's like a census, so that you've then got, effectively you walk out with a certificate of name and address of where you're actually living. And again, town halls differ. There's lots of them, thousands of them. They all differ in their requirements. If you're renting a property, someone may accept only a 3-month rental contract, sometimes 6, sometimes 11. But on the rental contract side, you can always put a clause in there, a get out clause after a certain amount of time there. And then you really are upfront. You need to start to gather your documentation requirements before you attend an appointment at the local sort of police station where you apply for the EU residency. Okay, and you are literally handing over the documents to them, and the main requirements are you've got to show one, you've got to show, obviously, where you're living, the fixed address that you've got in Spain, that town hall certificate, and also that you've got sufficient financial resources to reside in Spain for yourself, and if you've got family members as well, so that you don't become a burden on the state. You'll also need, and again,
what does that mean? Do you have a number of how much? When are you?
Well, and here's where we go again. We start to talk about some of these inconsistencies. Financial resources is one of them, because some areas, so we talked about the provinces, some provinces such as Alicante, for example, they insist on having a Spanish bank account if you're going to apply for Spanish residency. Some areas don't, some areas do. And the level, as a guideline, only as a guideline, the absolute minimum is 7,200 euros equivalent per applicant. But of course, it's always, that's a guideline, and it's always better to show more.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So you need, sorry, so you need the proof where you're staying of your address. So in some cases you need the bank account with the 7,200. What else do you need?
And then you will also need private medical insurance with an insurance provider authorized to operate in Spain. Okay? And there are certain requirements there that for the first year you have to pay the annual payment up front, so that when you get the residency, you don't cancel it. It has to be no co-payments, and it has to be fully comprehensive without any exclusions there. Now, that private medical insurance with a provider authorized to operate in Spain is on the basis that you're not eligible to access the Spanish healthcare system. Okay. So, for example, if somebody had a work contract in Spain, then they would be contributing to the Social Security in Spain. Therefore, they would be eligible to access the Spanish healthcare system. So they wouldn't need to show private medical insurance for their residency application. Or indeed, you know, if they've got an employment contract in Spain, they can actually show that instead of the bank statements there.
Right. Okay. And is there anything else that you need to become a resident, or is this it? Those three things?
Those are the three main things. Obviously, if you've got family members, so if it's yourself, or and you've got dependent children, for example, you are going to need to prove that they are basically your children. So birth certificate comes in handy on that one. So
and Nicoline, I just add to that. So if you are of retirement age, then typically you can obtain a form from your home country, and the Spanish authorities will recognize that, and you'll be able to plug into the Spanish healthcare system.
Okay, so it's different when you're retired.
Yes. Yeah.
Is it also different when you have your own company? I
mean, again, if you're, as Melanie said, if you're working here, so if someone's got a Spanish company and they're employed by their Spanish company, then they are paying Social Security, they'll be entitled to receive medical cover. So they wouldn't need private medical insurance. Okay. Right. If someone was self-employed, typically you would be paying into the Spanish healthcare system as well.
Okay. So you need to, but do you need to have the proof then of a private medical insurance?
Yeah, obviously it depends on the age and your circumstances. So if you're retiring to, if you've retired, then you would obtain a form from your country and you can plug into the Spanish healthcare system. If you're not working but wishing to kind of retire to Spain or just live in Spain, then you need the private medical insurance. And then if you're going to be working, for a Spanish company, you'll get covered through Spanish Social Security.
Okay. And so this is all what you need to become resident. What are you gonna get?
Well, you will get
What are you going to get back?
You will get a temporary, very flimsy green residency card, which can I say, please don't put plastic around it or anything like that to seal it, because that invalidates it. And it's temporary residency for a period of 5 years. Okay. And then after 5 years of consistently residing in Spain, then you can apply for permanent residency in Spain for 10 years.
Okay.
And if you're not happy with the way the Dutch football team play football, and you want to take out Spanish nationality because they're obviously much better players, you've got to spend 10 years in Spain to get to change your nationality. So again, nationality and citizenship is different to residency. You'll have Spanish residency, but you'll have your Dutch or Belgian passport. If you change your passport, and I have there's an estate agent we work with locally, Nicoline, she's Dutch born, but she taken out Spanish nationality. After 10 years, you can apply for Spanish nationality.
Okay.
Unless, of course, you find a very handsome, you come over as a handsome Spanish person that you marry, then you'll also be, rather than 10 years of residency, you'll be, after 1 year of marriage and living in Spain, you'll be able to apply for Spanish nationality.
Okay, after 1 year. Well, I'm happily married, so that's not an option. So it's kind of like a more formality, but because I got some questions regarding this, when you have become like a resident, is that the same as a padrón?
Sorry, could you say that word again?
Padrón?
Yeah, so the padrón is
the padrón, yeah.
In order to become a resident, you've got to register on the padrón. So the padrón is the census by the town hall, and basically, Nicoline, if you own a property in Spain and you're moving to Spain, then you've got to register on the padrón, empadronarse, empadronamiento, and you get a certificado de empadronamiento, and that also means you can vote in local elections and European elections. Okay, and every person that's added to the padrón means that town hall can get more money from central government for police, firemen, nurses, doctors, that sort of thing. So if you are moving to Spain, don't kind of not do what we're talking about. Actually become transparent and legitimate, and do register as a resident and on the padrón, because it's a simple process.
Yeah, and it helps.
And the town halls, you will need to keep renewing that every 2 years as well. So you may get a notification from the town hall asking if you're still living at this address and so forth, and that there is a requirement to go in and just update your padrón at the town hall.
Okay, so the padrón is every 2 years, you say, and it's for everyone who has a house or does something in Spain, right? But is it the same as the residency, which you
should only really be applying for the padrón if you are intending to reside in Spain. So you can buy a house in Spain and you don't need to go on the padrón. So it's only if the procedure requires you to go on the padrón, and the residency procedure does require you to go on the padrón.
Okay. And then when you're here more than that 183 nights, then you have to become physical resident.
Yeah. So let me just clarify, Nicoline, it's 183 days. And if you came into Spain on a Friday and left on a Saturday, that's considered 2 days.
Okay. And do you have to unsubscribe then in the Netherlands or in Belgium, or how does that work?
Yeah. So in effect, if you're moving to Spain and you're going to be here for more than 183 days, in effect, you have to deregister from your tax authority in your home country. And then when you arrive in Spain, you say hello. Okay.
Right.
So it's deregistering and then registering here.
Okay. And does it matter when you do that? Is it better to do it in January than in, I don't know, in June?
Yeah, I mean, so this is a really important point, okay? So timing is important, okay? So again, people moving to Spain in September now, they're not going to become tax residents. That's great. So they'll become tax residents next year. But like all your pensions and investments in your home country, so when you move to Spain, sometimes those pensions, in investments, you can only be a resident in your home country to be entitled to some of those tax benefits and savings. So it's important to speak to a financial advisor in in the UK, in your home country, and also here when you move over. And just this is probably the most important point to consider for those moving over to Spain. If, for example, Nicolene, you moved, let's just say you bought a holiday home. You bought a holiday home and last year, and you thought, oh, I like that. I like it in Spain. I now want to move to Spain. And you sold your property in Holland. And you moved, let's just say you sold your property, you've got your house from last year, you sell your property in Holland the 1st of January, and you move to Spain on the 2nd of January. Spain will say, you became a tax resident that year. Did you make a gain on your Dutch property? Yes, you did. Then they will want to tax you on that in Spain, right? So whatever gain you have made, they'll want to tax you on that. So it's important when you're moving to Spain to talk to, a lawyer, accountant, a financial advisor, just to kind of plan your arrival so you can mitigate that tax. So for example, if you sold your property, your main property in Holland on the 1st of January, but you move to Spain on the 1st of September, then you won't be charged any capital gains tax here in Spain.
Right.
Okay. So timing the move is very important on the tax side.
Right. Okay. So there's another tax question. Everyone who has any questions, please put them in the chat. We will come to them. I will look through them. But we had a question before as well, that someone has a house in the Netherlands. They want to immigrate, but she's asking if they can keep it as a vacation home, and how does it affect work on tax-wise? Does that tax-wise work probably?
Yeah, so basically what happens here is that, yes, they can keep the property there. And if they move to Spain and buy a property here, then this is their main residence. So if they sold that property and they're a tax resident in Spain and they've made a gain, the Dutch authorities and the Spanish authorities will want some money for that, okay? The capital gains tax. So just be aware of that. Typically speaking, on income that she generates for that property in Holland, she pays income tax she would pay some tax in Holland, but because she's resident here, she would have to declare that income here.
Right. Okay, so depending on the country, depending on the tax rules in the Netherlands or in Belgium or wherever you are versus the Spanish one, you make a choice of which one. If you can make the choice and if you can decide when to do this, of course, you make a choice which is the cheapest version.
Well, there's not so much a choice. It's usually compulsory. So, but yeah. So again, the tax rules vary. We've got a tax lawyer in our office, and he could advise you about that. But just bear in mind, for example, if you rent, let's just say you were renting a property in Spain. So you were living in Spain and renting in Holland, you would pay income tax on that. You've got to declare that in Spain and in Holland. Okay. But there's a double tax treaty in place. So you're not going to pay the same amount of tax twice. You might just have to pay the difference. Okay.
Okay. Got it. Understand.
Sorry,
go ahead.
So I'm just saying there might be a withholding tax in Holland, say of 10, 15%, but here in Spain, it might be 20%. So you'd pay the 5% difference here.
Right. I understand. Okay, cool. Another question we had up front is, if you become a resident, how does that affect your state pension?
That's a good question. So basically, I mean, it varies, from pension. If you've got a private pension, then normally you would say to the private pension provider, I'm moving to Spain and I don't want to be taxed on my private pension in Holland anymore. So I move to Spain and you receive that pension gross. But there are certain professions that you may be taxed on in the country on them. So, for example, if you're a teacher, a nurse, or you work for a fireman or a doctor, you work for local government, you may be taxed on that, say, up to a certain amount in Holland, and then you pay the difference in tax here.
Okay. Okay. So there's no worry that when you move to Spain, you will lose your pension, right?
No.
It will somehow it will get to you.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So if you want to become a resident, or if you need to become a resident, maybe I should put it like that. How does that work? How do you go to, you have to go to the police, you told Miranda, I think. You have an appointment at the police. Of course, you guys can also help and do, I assume, you can do the work, all the documents and everything you need, because, well, the police speaks Spanish only. So well, without speaking Spanish, it's quite difficult, but it's not undoable. So how does it work to get a residency? What if a person decides to do it on their own? What do they need to do?
Well, the first thing they need to do is just spend some time gathering all that documentation. So the idea is that when you, like you say, you know, if they don't speak Spanish when they're going to the police station, they want to just be able to hand the documents over for them to check them, and then for them to actually just issue the green residency permit. That sounds really quite straightforward. But what we tend to do is specify, because, you know, depending on, you've got to get it right for that particular region, police station. So we generally confirm what documents we need. Often we start the process before they've even moved to Spain, if they've got dependents, if they've got dependent children, especially, so they can start planning this documentation stage. And they've also got to book an appointment online. Often the town halls want appointments. You know, some operate appointment systems, some don't. So you've got the forms there to complete at the town hall, and the appointment to book first of all, and then the appointment to book at the police station, and then to go down there and hand over those residency documents across to the official there. But one thing that we do, and which has allowed us really to operate throughout Spain, including the islands as well, which we, during the COVID times, is that when they weren't allowing us into those police stations, we started producing a summary in Spanish covering all the documents that they're presenting, and to really contact us if should there be any questions about their documentation. There aren't. We've explained it all in a Spanish summary, so they can literally hand it over with that top sheet on front, which explains everything.
Right.
And Nicoline, that was one of the kind of things about COVID. So that forced us. You know, we weren't allowed. Normally, we'd go in and translate and accompany the clients, but because it was only one person allowed at a time, you know, we did the summary sheet with this translation, and that was it, and with our telephone number at the bottom, and the official, if they had any questions, would call us. Otherwise, they just give us the residency card. Well, you know, they take the documents and stamp it and come back for the residency card. But that's worked. So that's allowed us, Nicoline, to act for clients all over Spain, and dealing with the residency.
Right, I understand. And like for residency, when you want to apply for residency, do you have to go to a police station in person, or can you as a lawyer do it for me when I'm in the Netherlands, for example?
No, you do need to go in front of the official in person. So the appointment is in the name of the person applying for residency. So you do need to take all those documents, and again, as well as the summary sheet in Spanish explaining everything, the client can actually call us excuse me, can actually call us when they're in the police station, if we need to speak to the official
to help out. If
Yeah, very rarely.
All right. And how fast can you arrange residency?
Well, it's more of the appointment. Like I say, if this is started, some depending on the area, some of the appointments are further in advance than other areas, so we tend to know which ones they are. So if you're starting this, let's say 4 weeks in advance of moving to Spain, then we can look at the appointments, see how far in advance they are, and also, you know, your documentation. Excuse me. How are you coughing fit? I think I need water. So yeah, we can sort of coordinate all that timing of the documentation, timing of the appointment, and so forth. But obviously there is, you know, in the months that we're in now, July and August, the appointments are you know, there are less appointments available because there's less staff. But it is still, you know, they are still open. They don't just sort of close up. You know, work does continue as normal, but just not as the availability of the appointments that you would say start to see come September onwards.
Yeah, and just to be sure, you apply for residency in the place where you're gonna live, right?
That's right. So you would, in the province, so you would have various police stations in one particular province. So there's various in Alicante, for example, and we would select the nearest one possible. But you've got to appreciate sometimes that depending on how urgent the residency appointment is, you have to get the one that is available at the time.
Right.
Melanie, that might not be in the area where they choose to live in, right? So
no, just the province. So sometimes, you know, they might only show only show in I'm using Alicante. It could be any province here, but you know, it might just be in Alicante itself where they show some, or we just have to wait. And it could be in another area. It could be, you know, Benidorm or Torrevieja. It could be any of those areas.
just to clarify, so I mean, it typically takes about 2 to 4 weeks to get the documents together, yeah. And then once and then, you know, they instruct us. It takes the clients are preparing the documents. As soon as they've instructed us, when would you book the appointment?
Well, we would, as soon as we know when you know, we've got a good idea on the timing of the documentation. So we know whether it's a single person, whether it's somebody who's coming with children. So we'll gauge a better idea on how long we think those documents are going to take. And then, of course, when they come to Spain, they've still got 90 days, really, before they need to apply for this anyway. So then we would start looking at the appointments there. So it's all going to happen within that 3 month of moving to Spain. You know, it would just be dependent on the time of year and the availability of the appointments, but we'll try and book them as far in advance as we possibly can. You've also got to remember, some town halls may not give you that certificate on the same day, the padron certificate on the same day as you apply for it. Some of them take 2 weeks. And also some people come to Spain and then they start to look for a rental property. They don't always have that address first. They want to, you know, spend a week or so in an Airbnb to look around the area and find a rental property, or even, you know, purchase of a house, whatever. So we've got to take on all those variables when we're looking at the timing of all of this.
And Melanie, when they go in with the fact sheet and all the documents, do they come out with a residency on that day?
Yeah, they do. They issue that. They do. They come out with the green residency permit on the same day as they apply for it.
Okay. It's
so really, sorry, Nicola. So really, once the key is that appointment date. Once you've got the appointment, you've got to make sure you've got all your documents, and you'll get the residency card on that day.
Yeah, or 2 weeks after, right? Melanie said, but around that day.
Yeah. So I mean, once you've got all the, once we know when you're coming across and your situation, we'll know, in terms of booking the town hall appointment, if indeed they do need appointments, we'll also know how long that certificate takes. So we'll build that in as well. And then we'll book the, you could really say, within a month of arriving, you should really be aiming to, a month or two of arriving, aiming to attend that police appointment.
A question, if you don't have the residency yet, because it takes a month or 6 weeks or whatever, is there something you cannot do? Does it stop you from doing something?
No.
So not because it's not big of a worry.
No big of a worry. See, some people have asked, do I wait until I get my employment contract first? And that's fine. If you're expecting this employment contract in Spain, it's fine to wait, and then you can go down to apply for the residency with your employment contract. Not a problem.
Okay, cool. We have some questions coming in. Can I ask them to you?
Of course.
Perfect. So someone is asking if you are like the overwinteraars, which is like someone who's staying for winter periods that will stay longer than 3 months, but less than the 183 days. Is that then emigration? Do you have to apply for residency, or what do you suggest? So let's say someone stays for, let's see, it's 30 days. So someone stays for 4 months, but we'll go back to the Netherlands for sure. And maybe next winter they will come back again for 4 months.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, most people don't apply for residency. In that situation, they wouldn't apply for Spanish residency. And again, because there is no sort of control or monitoring of this anyway, and it's all down to the freedom of movement, then in that situation, you really don't have the intention of residing in Spain long term. So in that situation, you wouldn't. By the time you've actually completed the process, you probably have gone home anyway.
Right.
But Nicoline, just so you know, though, by law, that person should apply for it.
Yeah,
and that's just a normal residency, which has nothing to do with paying tax, because the paying tax is after 183 days. But for 4 months, you should register for padrón, which is a residency, right? But it doesn't have an implication of anything.
No, but just bear in mind, that person is here for 4 months. What happens if they have an accident, right? How are they covered? Will they have travel insurance for that period? Or will they have private medical insurance? So
right.
that's just a question. If they're coming here, will they have the European insurance card?
Right. So yeah, if you have that, yeah.
And one thing to mention here is that even if they only spend, say, 4 months a year, they've got this temporary residency that's for 5 years. Even if they spend 4 months a year, they're not going to lose that temporary residency, okay, for the absences that they are out of Spain for.
Right. Okay.
Nicoline, Javier and Mandelicia, they don't do this. But if people were moving to the Canaries or spending 4 months in the Canaries, if you become a resident in those islands, or you're going to spend 4 months in those islands, so once you've got the residency, you can get deductions on the cost of flights, right?
Yeah. So and on the boat to Ibiza, they have different prices. Yeah, very true.
So if you are going to the islands, I certainly recommend you getting the residency card to get the discounts on the boats and planes.
And the residency itself doesn't have any implications towards tax, towards Holland, nothing. It's just a registration where you have to show the 3 things that we talked about earlier, but it doesn't imply anything like nothing changes for the Netherlands, and you still pay your tax and everything stays the same there. So that's a good, he got something back.
Yeah, as long as you spend more, as long as you spend less than 183 days in Spain, you don't have to worry about paying taxes here.
Right. Do you have to pay something for the local government for, I don't know?
Yeah, so if you own a property, you're going to pay town hall rates.
Right. Okay. So if you own a property,
that's normal. But if you buy a property, and you buy a property, you're a non-tax resident, then the year after ownership, you pay what's known as the non-residence income tax. So that, again, when we act for clients buying a property, we calculate for them. But based on, say, a property of 200,000 euros, you're looking at 200 euros taxes. But and that's paid the year after purchase. But again, that's negligible, yeah.
Right. Okay. All right. Somebody's asking, do you need to be, how do you say that, uitgeschreven? Do you need to be unsubscribed in the Netherlands before Residentia, or only when you become fiscal resident? I think you already answered the question, but it might be a question that was, so maybe just to clarify.
It's only when you become fiscal resident. So when you become, so you spend more than 183 days in Spain, you say bye-bye to the tax authorities in Holland. So you fill out a form there and say, I'm moving to Spain. And when you arrive in Spain, you say hello to the Spanish tax authorities. But you've got to plan that move carefully and take tax advice.
Right. Yeah, it's very important. Or you're going to pay double, or it's going to cost you too much money, which is a shame. I'm not sure if I can ask this question at this moment. So if you don't know that, or you don't want to answer that at this moment, it's totally fine. But it's a question about wealth tax, whether it exists in Spain.
Yes, it does. It does. So again, that varies region to region. Okay. So for example, the Valencian region has wealth tax in place, and basically all across Spain. But for example, in Valencian region, I believe it's 500,000 euros per person. Okay, so
you mean.
And then you get some allowances and discounts. So basically, once you above that amount, then you start to pay wealth tax. Andalusia, it is up to 3 million euros per person. Okay, so it does vary from region to region. Okay, again, that's something that a tax lawyer can advise you about before you make the move to Spain. So that's why it's so important to carefully plan that move if you've got valuable assets.
Okay, clear. Sorry, I have to translate from Dutch because the questions are in Dutch, so it's gonna take a sec. Yeah, well, so somebody's asking, is it more useful to first go for Residentia and then to annul everything in the Netherlands? But that's just about the fiscal thing. So the fiscal residency, yeah. But if you do the Residentia, only that, you still have your things in the Netherlands, so nothing really changes. So you can do the residency, and after the 183 days, then you officially become fiscal resident. So I don't think you have to worry, Claudette. Okay, so somebody got fired and got like a fee with him. Does that make sense when I say that? Something
fine.
Like, so he gets like money from their old employer, and he's paying tax in the Netherlands on this. So he's asking whether he's on risk to pay again in Spain when he's immigrating in April.
Yes, because that would, if again, so he comes in at April. If he's coming in April next year, then basically in 2025 he will spend 183 days in Spain. So he will become a tax resident in 2025. So he would have to then declare his pay tax in Spain in 2026 on worldwide income and assets. And if that's considered as income, then potentially he could basically pay tax on that in Spain.
But if he already paid tax in the Netherlands on that, or if he will pay tax in the Netherlands on that, will that be deducted or?
We'd have to look at that. We'd have to look at. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, sorry. I just asked the questions which are coming by, but we're talking Residentia today. So sometimes there's a question which is like, well, it's something to do with it, but not, this is very specific.
Yeah.
This one I don't really understand. Ivana, sorry, I don't really understand your question. Maybe you can ask it again. So somebody else already has a house in region Valencia, and the next step is to really immigrate. He's doubting whether or not to go to work. Yeah, and he already understood that there's the 1,700 euros that you have to show, and like the insurance private. Yeah, so that's it. So the 3 things that you need for residency, you already explained, Melanie, right? Is like the 7, well, depends a little bit on which region, but this is Valencia. It's the 7,200 euros on your Spanish bank account. A private.
I'd say that 7,200 is the absolute minimum, and it's a guideline. So right. I just emphasize that. So they either show that, or they show that they've got an employment contract in Spain or registered as self-employed in Spain.
Right. Can you also show your private
pension?
Like pension or like
yes, absolutely. Pension income. Yeah.
So it's the amount that you have to have, which is specific per region, private medical insurance, and an address. So those are the 3 things you need to have. Wow, it's a bit complicated, and it sounds a bit scary. Maybe that's also the thing of becoming resident. It's like the big step. But what I understand from you, so thank you very much, is that the padrón Residencia, like the normal one, isn't such a big step actually. It's just register to get maybe some perks like from the islands, or at least that the government here gets something in return for you staying here. And then it becomes different, and that's really important. And then there you need to talk to a gestor or a tax advisor or a lawyer when you are here more than 183 days. And that is very important to time that right. So when you move from June to December, it doesn't really matter because you will never be in that year 183 days. But when you're planning on emigrating in the first half of the year, please get some advice, because it can be a very costly thing if you do it wrong. Is that kind of the right conclusion?
Yeah. Obviously not the June, January, February, March, April, May, June. That would be 6 months. So probably best to move from the first onwards. Yeah. But yeah, that was a great summary, Nicoline. So really, what we should have talked to you about this earlier, and you could have done the 5-minute summary, eh?
I need your input first. And again, with these kind of things, there's so many specific questions and situations. I get some questions as well on people who are on their pension, or they get like money from the government, or somebody cannot work anymore, so has a different thing. So we're going to talk in another time. We're going to talk about those kind of subjects. Today, I really want to focus on the Residencia and when and how. And we're already an hour on the way. So I think for today, it's enough. But I get a lot of questions about health insurance, about pensions, about 𝒏𝒂𝒂𝒓, I think, I'm not sure where it stands for, but it's like the social security when you cannot work anymore, those kind of things. So when can you move, when should you move, etc., etc. But again, this is for another day. I want to thank you so much for your time and all your knowledge, and that you're willing to share that with us. And for people who are like, oh my God, I need some personal advice, I will share your details in the email and on the video later. So I think they can just contact you guys, or maybe there's a general email address or phone number, which I can share for you. So if people are a bit worried, or they want to have like, well, get their personal advice, your door's open, I assume.
Absolutely, yeah. So that they can go onto our website, Nicoline, the My Law in Spain website, go into the contact page, and they can send us an email there, setting out their circumstances, And then if they need tax advice, we've got Pedro, who's based in our 𝒏𝒂𝒂𝒓 office in Alicante. He can give them some advice about planning their move. And then if they want to speak to a tax advisor, we work with Belgium tax advisors who live in Spain. So yeah, there's Belgium and Dutch tax advisors. So yeah, we can certainly help them and point them in the right direction.
Cool. Well, thank you very much. I got all kinds of nice of compliments. Thank you. Thank you. Very interesting. Thank you for explanation. This is very helpful. So got lots of happy people here. I just wanted to explain one more thing. I'm going to do that in Dutch if that's for you, okay for you. And then we're going to wrap up. Want heel leuk nieuws. Half oktober, 16 oktober, organiseer ik een online summit, Emigreren naar Spanje. En in die online summit, dat is een 10-daagse, komen heel veel experts aan het woord over allerlei verschillende onderwerpen. Dus ook over belastingen, over ziektekosten, over pensioenen, nou, van alles. En op dit moment heb ik nog een hele toffe Early Bird aanbieding. Het gaat 67 euro kosten, maar voor nu is die nog 37. Dus mocht je denken, dit vind ik tof, hier wil ik bij zijn, hier wil ik meer van weten. Je bent heel erg welkom vanaf 16 oktober voor de online summit. So I will share that link with you later as well. I just check if there's one last question, but I think everybody's happy and satisfied. So thanks a lot. This really helped a lot of people, I think. And wow.
Our pleasure.
Soon.
And happy to kind of answer any other questions that people come about, whether it's moving to Spain, buying property, selling property, or inheriting property, or Spanish wills,
That's an important one too. Yeah. Lots of nice subjects. Well, thank you very much. And
thank you for inviting us.
Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye. Bye.